Greetings and welcome to another Warhammer 40,000 kill team video where today I'm going over the updated Hunter Clade rules. But before we get into things, please remember to like and subscribe as well as comment. Let me know what you thought of today's video. Remember, I've got a Discord you can check out for free in the episode description below, an affiliate link at Element Games, and an affiliate link at Crossfire Games, and a Patreon if you want to give me some more support. But yeah, this is like White Dwarf annual day, so I'm going over the updated Hunter Clade rules. It's the final day. Oh, I'm so happy. But you can check out these rules which you can find for free on Warhammer community and the Kill Team app. So let's get on with it. So for Operative Selection, well, your roster, you still have Recon and Seek and Destroy, which is useful for this kill team, and you are now a 10 operative kill team. So you've lost the ability to go up to 11 operatives. So you can take a leader, which can either be an Infiltrator Princeps with either a Flechette Blaster or Stub Carbine, and then either a Power Weapon or Taser Goad. Then either a Ruststalker Princeps, a Ranger Alpha with a Galvanic Rifle or Mastercrafted Pistol, Radium Pistol and Power Weapon, or an Arc Pistol or Phosphor Blast Pistol and an Arc Maul or Taser Goad. Then a Vanguard Alpha with a Radium Carbine or Mastercrafted Radium Pistol and Power Weapon, or an Arc Pistol or Phosphor Blast Pistol, or an Arc Maul and Taser Goad. Then for your 9 other operatives, you can take a Sakaran Infiltrator Warrior with either Flechette Blaster or Stub Carbine, and then either a Power Weapon or Taser Goad, a Ruststalker Warrior with either a Cord Claw and Transonic Razor or Transonic Blades, then a Ranger Dictat, a Ranger Gunner with an Arc Rifle, Plasma Caliber or Transuranic Arquebus, then a Ranger Surveyor or Ranger Warrior. Then you can take a Vanguard Dictat, a Vanguard Gunner, a Vanguard Surveyor, and a Vanguard Warrior. The only restriction on your kill team, other than one per operative, is you can take up to 3 gunners, but they all have to be armed differently. You can take up to 5 Sakaran operatives, so that's basically your assassin, and you can take up to 1 of everyone else. So other than those changes, your team, well, your team's changed quite a bit, but you're now just a solid 10 operative team. For your faction rules, you have Doctriner Imperatives. So as the Strategic Gambit, select a Doctriner Imperative for friendly Hunter Clade operatives to have until the ready step of the next strategy phase. Each imperative has both an optimization and a depreciation rule. Both are in effect while your kill team has the Doctriner Imperative. So if you've got Protector up, your optimization is friendly operatives have the ranged weapon have Ceaseless, but then you worsen the hit stat of melee weapons by 1. This isn't cumulative with being injured. For Conqueror, friendly operatives melee weapons have the Ceaseless weapon rule, but then you get -1 to hit for shooting. For Bulwark, whenever an operative is shooting a friendly Hunter Clade operative, you can reroll any of your defense dice of 1 result, but then you subtract 1 from the movement stat of friendly operatives, and then if you take Aggressor, you add 1 to your movement stat, but then worsen the save stat by 1. Or you pick Neutral, which does nothing. So this is unfortunately a nerf, because in the prior edition, the first time you picked an imperative, you ignored its depreciation for that turning point. So then if you ran it 2 turning points in a row, it would then kick in. I think they need to bring that back, because otherwise, I'm sorry, unless you're just going like constantly shooting, this is really rough and I think quite unfair on the team. Just bring it back. Just bring it back, not being able to trigger the depreciation the first time you activate an imperative, and then I think it'd be fine. Otherwise, these abilities are very, very good. It's just like if everyone else had a downside when they use something, or these buffs were really busted, like, you know, you can reroll, you get all your weapons get relentless, all your melee weapons get relentless, you can reroll all your defense dice you add to your movement stat, then I'd go like, okay, that depreciation kind of makes sense. But because it's only slight buffs, I think they just need that depreciation not active the turning point. You activate your imperative for the first time. For strategy ploys, you have Debilitating Radiation, Irradiation. Whenever a friendly operative is shooting against, fighting against, or retaliating a friendly Vanguard operative, if the enemy operative is under the effects of Rad Saturation rule, subtract 1 from the normal damage stats of its weapons to a minimum of 3. This is interesting. Then you've got Neurostatic Interference. Whenever an enemy operative is within 6 inches of an Infiltrator operative and is shooting, fighting, or retaliating, your opponent cannot reroll their attack dice. This is unchanged and still very useful. Then you've got Scouting Protocol. Each friendly range operative that has a conceal order and is more than 6 inches from enemy operatives can immediately perform a free dash action in any order of choice. You cannot use this ploy during turning point 1. Interesting, but quite balanced because you can't use it at turning point 1. Then you've got Accelerant Agents. During each friendly Hunter Clade Ruststalker's activation, it can perform 2 fight actions and 1 of them can be free. So this is unchanged. You have a solid selection of ploys. For your Firefight ploys, you have Control Edict. This used to be your leader's ability. Use this Firefight ploy when it's your turn to activate a friendly operative. Select one leader operative and one other friendly Hunter Clade operative visible and within 3 inches of that leader. You activate one of them as normal. When that first friendly operative is expended, then you can activate the other friendly operative before your opponent activates. When that other operative is expended, your opponent, when you use this ploy, you cannot select more than one Sikaran. So this is balanced now, because before you would just select 2 Sikarans and it didn't have to be your leader. Now one of them has to be your leader and only one can be a Sikaran. So you can't just do the double Sikaran suicide bomb. So it's still good, but a lot more balanced. Then, I know you have to spend a command point to use it. Then you've got Scrap Code Overload. Use this Firefight ploy when a friendly Infiltrator operative is activated. Alternatively, use this Firefight ploy when a friendly Infiltrator operative or enemy operative within 3 inches of that friendly operative will perform the pickup marker or mission action, excluding Operate Hatch. Until the start of that friendly operative's next activation, whenever determining control of a marker, treat that total AP stat of enemy operatives contesting as 1 AP or lower. If at least one of those enemy operatives is within 3 inches of the enemy friendly operative, note this isn't a change to the APL stat, and this change can control a marker before performing the action. So it allows you just to steal an objective or do a mission action, which can be quite useful depending on the board you're playing on. Then you've got Command Override. Use this Firefight ploy when you activate a friendly Hunter Clade operative. Select a Doctriner Imperative for the operative to have instead of its current one until the ready step of the next strategy phase. It's good, but you'll probably never use it because the Imperatives are quite bad unless you're like switching for a shooting operative. Then you've got the Omnissiah's Imperative. Use this Firefight ploy when a friendly Hunter Clade operative activates. Inflict D3+1 damage operative on the operative until the ready step of the next strategy phase. That operative has an additional rule determined by its current imperative. So if it had Protective, its range Protector, its range weapons now gain Severe, as well as Ceaseless. For Conqueror, whenever you're fighting, after resolve your first attack dice during that sequence, you can immediately resolve another before your opponent. So this is useful if you've got like 2 crits and you want to immediately kill someone. Then you've got Bulwark, improve your save stat by 1. In addition, when an operative is shooting this operative, you can collect and roll an additional defense dice. Aggressor, you can ignore the first distance of 2 when you move during one climb, and neutral is none. So you can spend the CP to do nothing. And no, you can use this ploy after rolling attack dice or defense dice, or before or after retaliation or rerolling defense dice. So this is actually really, really useful because the Protector one isn't too good because you don't really care too much about Severe, but Conqueror is really useful for getting that double kill, and Bulwark is if you go like, now I go to a 3-up save, and now like if I'm a Rust Stalk, I can retain 3 dice, so this will keep me alive. Very, very useful. And even Aggressor to get an extra 2-inch, where you can ignore your climb. So if you wanted to get a charge for a Rust Stalker, you can pretend you have Optimized Gate. So this is actually probably your best Firefight ploy. For your Operatives, you have your Rust Stalker Princeps, who has 2 APL, 6-inch move, 4-up save, and 11 wounds. This is the standard profile for all your Sicarians, but your leaders have 11 wounds, everyone else has 10. So it's got the Cord Claw and Transonic Blades, which are 5 attacks, hit on freeze, 4-6 balance rending. It's got the Canticles of Destruction. Whenever a friendly operative is Rust Stalker operatives within 3 inches that is fighting, the first time you strike with a critical success, inflict 1 additional damage, which is okay. Then you've got Wasteland Stalker. Whenever an operative is shooting this operative, you can retain any cover saves, you can retain 1 additional save, or you can retain 1 as a critical success, but doesn't stack with advantage. So Wasteland Stalker is unchanged. Canticle as Destruction is okay if you wanted to do 7 damage to someone, which is actually quite useful into 7 wound teams. Then you've got your Infiltrator Princeps, who can have a Flechette Blaster, which is 5 attacks in on freeze, 2/2 range 8 saturate silent. So it lost Relentless, but is now silent, and it has Saturates. Then you've got the Stub Carbine, who has 4 attacks in on freeze, 3/4 Ceaseless. So this is technically been buffed because of how Ceaseless works. Then you've got the Power Weapon, which is 4 attacks in on freeze, 4/6 lethal 5-up. And then the Taser Goad, which is 4 attacks in on freeze, 3/4 lethal 5-up shock. So every time you see a Taser Goad, just ignore it and take the Power Weapon. I prefer the Stub Carbine. The Flechette Blaster is good for stuff moving up. But because you've lost all your rerolls, I much prefer the Stub Carbine. Then you've got Canticle of the Shroud Psalm. Whenever a friendly Infiltrator operative is within 3 inches of this operative and has a conceal order and is in cover, that friendly operative cannot be selected as a valid target, taking precedence over all other rules. So you get Super Conceal. So you do have, this leader grants it to itself and the other friendly Infiltrators. So you can do this thing where you have 3 or 4 Infiltrators moving up in a bubble on Conceal just for slap blastering stuff at range 8. But I still just prefer the Shard Carbine. Although for the leader, I would probably give it the Flechette Blaster so it can just always move around harassing people. For your Ranger Alpha, it can have the Arc Pistol, which is 4 attacks, 8 on freeze, 4/5 range 8, piercing 1 stun. The Galvanic Rifle, which is 4 attacks, 8 on freeze, heavy reposition only, piercing crits 1. The Radium Pistol, which is 4 attacks, 8 on freeze, 2/4 range 8, balanced rending. The Phosphor Blast Pistol, which is 4 attacks, 8 on freeze, 3/4 range 8, blast 1 severe. Then the Arkmaw, which is 4 attacks, 8 on 4s, 4/5 shock. Gunbot, which is 3 attacks, 8 on 4s, 2/3. Power Weapon, which is 4 attacks, 8 on 4s, 4/6 lethal 5 up. And the Taser Goad, which is 4 attacks, 8 on 4s, 3/4 lethal 5 up shock. So generally I would always go with the Power Weapon and probably the Radium Pistol, or well, actually the Phosphor Blast Pistol or the Arc Pistol. So it's usually Arc Pistol or Phosphor Blast Pistol. Then you've got Canticles of Elimination. When a friendly range operative is within 3 inches of the operative, that's ranged operatives' weapons have the Punishing Weapon rule. And then you have Targeting Protocol. Whenever this operative is shooting, if it hasn't moved during activation or its counteraction, its ranged weapons have the lethal 5-up weapon rule. Note, this operative isn't restricted from moving after shooting. So the Targeting Protocol is a general ranger thing, but Canticle of Elimination is really great, especially for if you're taking the Ranger Gunners. So now, before you kind of always went with the Vanguard Alpha, I think the Ranger Alpha is probably your go-to leader. And in that case, I would usually give it the Power Weapon and personally the Arc Pistol because, you know, you can give it self-lethal 5-up when it needs to shoot. Then you've got the Vanguard Alpha, so it has 2 APL, 6-inch move, 4-up save, and 8 wounds. These are the standard profile for your Rangers and Vanguard, although your leaders have 8, everyone else has 7 wounds. So it's the same weapons as before, but instead of taking the Galvanic Rifle, it can take the Radium Carbine, which is 4 attacks, 8 on freeze, 2/4 rending. It's got the Canticle of the Glow, so whenever an enemy operative is within 3 inches of operative and it's under the effects of rad saturation, subtract 1 from its attack stat, which is actually pretty useful. Then you've got rad saturation. Whenever an enemy operative is within 2 inches of a friendly Vanguard operative, worsen its hit stat of the enemy operative by 1. This isn't cumulative with being injured. It used to reduce your movement, now it doesn't do that as well. So your Vanguard Alpha is still solid, but personally I prefer the Ranger Alpha just because it synergizes more with the normal warriors you're taking. For your Infiltrator Warrior, can have a Flechette Blaster, Stub Carbine, Power Weapon, or Taser Goad. Generally, well, you're always going with Power Weapons, and then I like a mix of Stub Carbines or Flechette Blasters. Flechette Blasters if you're planning to like just abuse going up on Conceal, but I do like the Stub Carbine. Generally, as long as you're picking the Power Weapon, you're good. Then for your Rust Stalker, it has the Cold Claw and Transonic Razor, which is 5 attacks, 8 on freeze, 4/5 balanced, or the Transonic Blades, which are 5 attacks, 8 on freeze, 4/6 rending. You've got Wasteland Stalker, so it's the benefit of cover when you're being shot at. This operative is unchanged, but I generally prefer Transonic Blades into Elites, because if you get that reroll off with your Canticle, then if you get like 2 crits, you can spend a CP to push through 12 damage, then strike and kill an elite, but you can double fight, which is very useful. Into everyone else that isn't effectively 12 wounds or more, well, 11 wounds or more, I would always go with the Cold Claw and Transonic Razor because it's 4/5 balanced. It just depends when you need to go to 4/6, which are usually elites. But otherwise, they're good. Spoilers, they've lost Optimized Gate, so they're kinda worse. Then you've got your Ranger Dictat, who has a Galvanic Rifle and Gunbutt. So the Gunbutt is 3 attacks, 8 on 4s, 2/3, and the Galvanic Rifle is heavy reposition only, 3/4, 4 attacks, 8 on 4s, 3 piercing crits 1. And it's got Targeting Protocol, so as long as it hasn't moved during its activation or counteraction, it gains lethal 5-up, but then you can move after. So as a whole, the Rangers have been buffed. Their Targeting Protocols are way better, and their Galvanic Rifles now allow them to reposition and shoot, where before they could only dash and shoot. So I do now think you probably just go with your Rangers, because they're so good at shooting. It's got the Signal ability, so it just works as a comms, so you pick someone within 6 inches to get +1 APL. So for your Ranger, I would actually probably go as, well, your Dictat, I'd always take it as a Ranger now, just because it's usually going to be standing still, so you could give someone +1 APL, then shoot someone. So it's up to you, really. Then you've got your Ranger Gunner, so it can either have an Arc Rifle, which is 4 attacks, 8 on freeze, 4/5 piercing, 1 stun, a Plasma Caliver, which is 4 attacks, 8 on freeze, 4/6 piercing, 1, and then when it supercharges, it's 5/6, hot lethal 5-up piercing, 1. The Transuranic Aquabus, which is mobile, 4 attacks, 8 on freeze, 4/3, devastating 2, heavy dash only, piercing 1. And then you've got a stationary mode, which is 4 attacks, hitting on 2s, 4/3, devastating 3, heavy, piercing 1, severe. And then you've got the Gunbutt, which is 3 attacks, 8 on 4s, and Targeting Protocols. So you always take your Gunners as Rangers because they benefit from Targeting Protocols to gain lethal 5-up, which makes your Arc Rifle really reliable and actually eliminates your need for overcharging the Plasma Caliver. But your you can take the Aquabus now. It's good. It's just very stationary, and it's got a huge 60 by 35 mil base. But I still like it, especially into elites. You spend turning point 1 to getting into position on a vantage point, and then you just blow away an elite effectively because you've got 4 attacks, hit on freeze, dev free, with 4 free, piercing 1, severe. So you're always triggering at least 1 crit, and you'll be having lethal 5 up. So very, very useful. Really good. Then you've got your surveyor as a ranger who has the spot ability. So as a support action for 1 action point, select 1 enemy operative visible to this operative until the end of the turning point. Whenever a friendly operative is within 3 inches of the operative and is shooting the enemy operative, you can use this rule. That friendly ranged operatives have the Seek Light weapon rule, and they cannot be obscured. This has actually been buffed because before it just granted ignore obscuring, then you picked someone else. But now it grants Seek Light. So very, very good. And once again, I would take this as a ranger because you can usually, especially if you switch from engage, you go like, I'm going to spot. You could even spot yourself and then shoot. So really, really good. Then you've got your ranger warrior who has a galvanic rifle and gunbar and targeting protocols. If you are taking any warriors, I don't think you actually do take a ranger warrior, but it depends on your opponent. Generally you can, especially as you just reposition and shooting, but they're a solid pick. Then you've got your vanguard dictat who has a radium carbine, which is 4 attacks, hit on freeze, 2/4 rending, which is unchanged. And then your gunbar, it's got rad saturation, so if you're within 2 inches of a friendly vanguard operative, you're -1 to hit. And then it's got the same support action as the dictat for the ranger. So it's your comms. As I said, I think you now just go full ranger because there's no other point. Then you've got your vanguard gunners who has the same as your ranger, but they don't have the shooting benefit. So you always went ranger gunners, but there is some tech you could take. So you could take the Transanic Aquabus as a vanguard operative and just have it charging around people. Because it's such a huge base, you can abuse rad saturation for it to charge like 4 enemy operatives and then affect all of them with rad saturation because of how big it is. So there's a niche use where you take the Transanic Aquabus and don't shoot it, just giving everyone radiation. But generally you never take Vanguard Gunners. And then once again, you've got your Vanguard Surveyor who you could take if you wanted to like move and shoot, but it's not really that useful. And then you've got your Vanguard Warrior who you potentially could take instead of the Ranger Warrior. But the Ranger Warrior is just more useful and it benefits more if it was standing still. The only benefit is this operative had free APL. It could reposition, shoot, and cap a point, and potentially if you rolled any crits, you could proc rending. But now I think, unfortunately, because the rad saturation was quite good, Rangers have been overbuffed to compensate. For faction equipment, you have Rad Bombardment, so once per battle as a strategic gambit, in any turning point after the first, select 1 objective marker or your opponent's drop zone, roll a d6, for separately for each enemy operative within control range of that selected objective marker or within the drop zone, and subtract 1 if any part of that operative's base is on the vantage point. On a 4-up, subtract 1 from their APL stat until its next activation, and if you roll a 6, inflict D3 damage. This is just useful because it's just like send in the war crimes. So very, very useful. Really messes up your opponent because you don't have to use it at turning point 2. You can actually wait to do it turning point 3 and 4. But it does punish your opponent if they turtle too much turning point 1. So pretty useful. Then you've got redundancy systems. Once per turning point when a friendly operative is activated, if it's not within control range of enemy operatives, you can use this rule. If you do, you regain up to D3 plus 2 lost wounds. Amazing. This is really good healing and it combos with if you hurt yourself for buffing yourself with that firefight ploy. So very, very good. But it's only when you activate it, so not after you activate it. Then you've got Refractor Field. Once per turning point, when a friendly operative is shooting a Hunter Clade operative, at the start of the roll defense size step, you can worsen the piercing roll by 1. Really, really good. Works on any operative, so even if your assassins are pushing up, they could use this. Then you've got the Extremist Mind Link. Marvel. Tony Stark. Once per battle, you can use the Control Edict Firefight for 0 CP, but instead of activating the selected friendly operatives in succession, activate them 1 at a time. Complete their activations action by action in any order. Okay, this is very good. It's at the cost of sacrificing your leader sometimes, but now you can super chain activate them. So if you had like your Sakaran leader and someone else activating, they could charge, then you could charge, then you could fight, and then they could shoot. So very, very powerful. So overall, I think you actually take everything. Although there may be some situations where you want to actually finally take grenades. But of course, Hunter Clade are purely cursed because by the time they can actually take grenades, they've lost the ability to have in like Seek. Although they do have an operative that gives Seek. For Operative Selection, this kill team is, because it's a White Dwarf team, it's incredibly expensive to get. So not only do you need, well, you can theoretically make this work from 2 boxes, right? So you could buy 1 box of Skitarii and build them all as Rangers. Because personally, I now think there's no point with going Vanguard, unfortunately. Rangers are going to be sitting back and shooting, and being a ranger just is now really beneficial towards that. So personally, I would always take rangers. So you could build 1 box of Skartari with rangers, although if you were just building 5, although you would build 6, you could potentially build like another leader if you wanted to have a Vanguard leader, and then maybe like some Vanguard warriors. But you can build 1 box of Skartari as all rangers, and then you can buy 1 box of Sicarians. And then personally, I would probably, this is difficult, so I actually like 3 infiltrators and 2 rust stalkers, although I wouldn't be surprised if you'd prefer 4 infiltrators or even 5 infiltrators. Because you've lost optimized gate, rust stalkers aren't as good, and they can't, well, they can double fight. They actually find it hard getting around the board. So if you wanted to go full shooting, you can actually benefit more. So that would how it could work as a 2-box team. But if you wanted to do what I did when this team was at its peak, is you buy 2 boxes of Skartari, so you can have a full set of rangers and a full set of Vanguard, and then then you buy 2 boxes of Sicarians, and then like eBay 2 more models, so you can have Rust Stalker leader, an infiltrator leader, then 5 infiltrators and 5 Rust Stalkers. Or you could just build 5 Rust Stalkers with 1 as the leader and 5 infiltrators as 1 as the leader, and when you're not using it as a leader, just tell your opponent, even though it's got all this gear, it's just a normal warrior. That should be okay. Unfortunately, it's very, very expensive, and that's how this team rolls, as is the common trend. But that's how you can get around it. If you're playing into elites, as I said, I would go with the arc rifle and power weapon on your Vanguard leader. I mean, not Vanguard, Ranger leader, because that's what you should take. And then you take all the gunners, and then everyone else as rangers. Then I would actually probably go 3 infiltrators with power weapons and probably stub carbines, because flechette blasters won't do too much to them. And then I would take 2 rust stalkers with transonic blades. Into other teams, you could, like horde teams, you could keep the same ratio and then drop the transonic blades for cord claws and transonic razors, and you'd still have the same effect. Some teams you want to run more rust stalkers, like on Gallowdark, oddly rust stalkers are very good because there's more open spaces for them to run around, less terrain to get in the way. But I am a fan of infiltrators, like being on the point, silently shooting or switching to engage, firing with their ceaseless bolt gun while turning off rerolls within 6. And then you've got your rangers in the backfield on objectives, setting up on turning point 1, and then like shooting people off the midfield objective and far away if they're trying to like mess up your plans. So you have your static gun line of your ranger stuff, and then you have your Sicarian assassins moving up, controlling the midfield, maybe pushing into your opponent's drop zone if they are the rust stalkers. For the Hunter Clade overview, unfortunately they are a little bit weaker, but they are fairer. They can't do like the 11 operative flex, having 2 assassins activate at once to murder you, and rust stalkers losing optimized gate now means they actually have to learn to use their 40mm base more properly, like correctly. But the main downside is that with your imperatives, having their downside always active the first time you use it is quite rough. If that wasn't active the first time you use it, I think they would be fine. They'd be a very, very good kill team. At the moment, they're once again too honest, but in a more punishing way. So I think once this kill team loses the downside of having its imperatives active for the first time they use it, then this kill team will be much more usable. That's the only real thing holding this kill team back. Remember, you've got assassins that can fight twice. You have a big reroll bubble shutdown of 6 inches, and your ranger operatives are really good at shooting now. Your team has access to not only just ignore and obscuring, but seek light at any range. So you're really good at shutting down other enemy shooting. Everyone has a minimum of a 4-up save, and then you've got operatives with 10 wounds, up to 5 of them. You have ways to group activate, super group activate. You've got a rad bombardment. They have all the makings of a very, very good kill team. They once again suffer from this common trend of being too honest, which I'm sure can change in a balance update. They are unfortunately very expensive to get, and if you want to like spend a lot of money to just get an okay kill team, you can. But if you are an AdMech player, congratulations, you've already paid that entrance fee. But I think they're still really fun with a lot of tricks, and they're still someone you can't underestimate. But they will struggle going into like more mobile and competitive teams who can just kind of get around all your tricks, doing what you do without all the rerolls, well, without all the downsides you have. Because if you had a way to, like, what Phobos can do all their shooting stuff, then switch to get, like, their melee buffs or vice versa, that would be quite nice, but you can't really do that. So you kind of feel punished for playing a little bit better. And as I said, if those buffs were super, super strong, I could understand the downside, but they're not. So it's kind of just, But otherwise, I still think they're really fun and solid. Just need some minor tweaks. But that's pretty much it from me today. Please remember to like and subscribe as well as comment. Let me know what you thought of today's video. Did you find it useful or helpful? And what do you think of the new Hunter Clade rules? And remember, I've got a Discord you can check out for free in the episode description below, an affiliate link on games and Crossfire Games, and a Patreon if you want to give me some more support. And I'll quickly shout out my patrons. So for my adepts of the crowd, Zombie Businessman, Tom, Supercow, Stephen, Sam, Nick, Mr. Meatword, Mercenary Q, Lucas, John Thomas Graham, Fangzu, Draken, Dave Meatswell, Darcy, Dada Goldens, Chris, and for my veterans of the crowd, Sandra and Mark. So thank you all for your support. It really means a lot to me and helps support the channel. But yeah, this is the last of the White Dwarf teams, but almost the last of the annual teams. Hunter Clade are in a really interesting spot. They're almost there. They just need to be buffed just a little bit, but otherwise they're still really solid and a lot of fun. But remember, no matter how many of the Adeptus Mechanicus' android cyborg forces you're fighting, there's always a chance to win, as long as you can roll a crit.